Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm doing great.
People don't know who you are.
Okay.
I don't think. You are. Tell people who you are so that you're not some stranger.
Okay. So I'm Gabbee, born and raised in New York, moved to Arizona when I was a young adult. And
the New York thing makes sense now. I don't think I connected the New York thing, but it makes sense. Are you a Bills fan or a Jets fan or a Giants fan?
I am nothing. I am not a sports fan.
I know you're not, but
I moved to South Carolina and I had to become a fan of something.
This morning, the Bills signed their best player, so they're on my heart today.
That's very exciting.
I know you don't care.
Nope.
Anyways.
No. So, lived in Arizona for 15 years. I was not born and raised in a church, and so I found God in Arizona, and went into full-time ministry. Also met my husband in Arizona, Corey.
Stud.
He is a stud. We're going to be married 22 years this summer. We're excited.
Tell the thing, 22.
Okay, so 22 years on July 22nd in the year 2022.
That's nuts.
I know. So we got to do something really cool.
Like something really cool.
Yes, I know.
I don't know what it would be, but it's got to be like
I agree.
Ground shaking.
I agree.
I'll tell Corey to plan something.
Okay, well, thank you. So yeah, we have two awesome kids. Isaac is 21 and Bella is going to be 18 this summer. And after 7 years of ministry at a church plant in Arizona, God called us to South Carolina. So that was a big culture shock.
Did you move here for church reasons? I didn't know that.
Yep. So I came in as the youth and worship pastor at a church in West Columbia, and then moved over to a more of a full-time discipleship pastor role. And my goal was to train people how to disciple people in the workplace. They spend 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week with these people. And so what does that look like?
Right.
And how to find balance and all of that. That position also turned into more of an executive role of operations in the church. And so in 2019, God called me from that position of full-time ministry into the workplace myself. I was finding like I wouldn't be able to really teach and empower people to disciple people in their workplace if I wasn't actually doing it myself. I was leading from an opinion. I was leading from any leadership development that I was receiving, but I needed to fully understand how difficult that was.
Tangible experience.
Exactly.
I don't think I realized that in knowing you that you were full-time ministry until 2019. Like you hadn't done that.
So it's new.
We'll get to that because you're so impressive with this stuff. But that's interesting. So I did not realize that. So me and somebody, well, maybe one of the boys from Pure Marketing yesterday, but I don't think it was. We talked about being a professional minister or a ministering professional. And the difference, I think it was me and Ryan, but we were talking about how everybody is a full-time minister.
Yeah.
Whether you're being paid or you're not, if you have the right mindset.
Yeah.
So how's your mindset changed on that now working a full-time, non-traditional ministry job?
So I found God in the workplace. I was saved at an RV dealership. And so
that should be the title of a book.
It really is just great how he invested. Me. Yeah, the RV saved me.
Oh,
That's
love
right.
It.
So he owned a company, RV dealership, and godly man, and just wanted to build the kingdom and gave his business to God and just said, if it's one person, then it's worth it.
Yeah.
And so he just had conversations about his faith, about his family. I got to watch what a healthy marriage looks like, what a healthy role as a parent looks like, and just what their involvement in community looked like. And it was something that I desired. So if I'm saved and I'm able to empower other people and lead other people to faith, I can do the same thing in the workplace. It's a calling.
That's pretty awesome. So for people who understand, Gabbee, you work for Trifecta Landscaping as our business administrator. And the reason why I wanted you on the show for this conversation is I think a few episodes ago, we talked about hiring your first admin or I called it non-revenue generating, meaning someone in the field necessarily, position. And I think in the home service business world, It's like a terrifying hire.
Yeah.
I've talked to hundreds of people now in this space, whether it be pest control, HVAC, plumbing, and people are so used to the person hiring someone who's going to be doing something with their hands, and they can physically see what they're doing.
Sure.
For example, I don't have the logins to an email that you have to now, and it was like one of the most terrifying experiences after having it
of my life
for 5 years. Well, for 5 years, I'm checking that email every day, and then to not have access to it. No, I should have done it, but I think that sentiment is prevalent across a lot of guys, and so that's why I wanted to talk to you about. Because you can't have a real business, we talk about this a lot. There's a difference between being self-employed and owning a business.
Yep.
Do you work for a guy or do you work for a company?
Yep.
And so you have done such a great job already with helping Trifecta fix all the problems I created and didn't know I was creating. And so that's why I wanted to talk so people understand what we're talking about today is what does that look like? What does hiring that person look like? How can that free up your business to actually grow instead of you feeling like it's a restricting thing where you're handing keys over, but it's actually handing keys over to help the kingdom grow bigger or the business to grow bigger, excuse me.
Yeah.
I wanted you to talk real quick before we get kind of in the weeds of that conversation. You went through something 10 years ago that was pretty impactful.
Yeah.
And it not only did what you're going to say change you, but then what came out of that changed your family forever.
Sure.
Can you kind of share? Because I think it's a unique experience.
Yeah, so it's been 12 years now.
12.
So 2010, I was diagnosed with breast cancer at 31 years old. No family history, and it wasn't estrogen produced. So there's really no reason they couldn't find or understand where it came from. So I went through intensive surgery, 2 years of chemotherapy, and it was difficult. And our kids were young. So 11 and maybe 8, if I could do the math real quick. But it was hard. But Corey and I grew closer. You know your spouse loves you. There's no doubt in that. But when you have to break yourself physically in the way that I had to experience, there's sacrificial love that's being shown.
Sure. And
the way that Corey responded and continues to respond is just incredible. So we had a rough first 10 years of marriage, and then the last 12 has been incredible.
Which is crazy because I feel like the story for so many is the opposite.
Yeah.
You get to the crux, the hardest point, and people give up, throw in the towel, and people look back like, oh, well, it just didn't work because we came across this obstacle.
Yeah.
But you allowed the obstacle to make it a million times better.
Yeah.
So, and one thing, another reason why I wanted to talk to you about this is I know people either watching this video reel or listening to this, which is, I don't know if you know this, Australia, Canada, pretty wide range, but I've talked to probably 5 or 6 that I can recall, people that say, well, I ended my marriage as I was a business owner, ended my marriage because it was just better if I gave her, some money. We just didn't work well together. Yeah. I was a business owner. She didn't understand the grind, that conversation. So basically adversity.
Yeah.
So what do you say as a person who's been in ministry watching those couples yourself, but also just going back to your challenge, how it made you better?
Yeah.
What do you say from your perspective of what do people do in that moment? When you face that crux moment, what's the first thing to do? So you don't go down the divorce route if humanly possible.
So I had a mentor through that whole process. And mentor, I speak this all the time. Everybody needs a mentor.
Yeah.
Everybody needs a safe place where they can completely unpack and be real and process through some really difficult things.
Right.
And so I had a mentor who was also a health professional. And she just really taught us that we had to communicate. A lot of things were going to change physically for me.
Right.
And I had to be able to sit down with Corey and talk through that and understand that he was going to love me through that.
Yes.
And so just talking about it, and I remember our breaking point because we weren't in line. Our rhythm was completely off.
Yeah.
And as we were trying to ingest all of this new information, whether it's a physical issue, a cancer diagnosis, or a business, hard times, you guys are going to get to a breaking point.
They all lead to a break. I was going to say they all lead to a breaking point.
Totally.
Yeah.
And our breaking point was we weren't in rhythm. We weren't communicating well, even though we were encouraged to.
Sure.
We were trying.
Sure.
We were young. We were overwhelmed. But one night, it was just, I couldn't take the weight of it anymore. And Corey was just overwhelmed as well. And I just remember both of us hit our knees and just started praying, and just we laid everything down. And we knew that we wanted to make it work. Like, this wasn't going to break us.
Right.
We had 10 years of marriage, 10 years of something that we've established. We have 2 kids. We got married for a reason. We loved each other. That was obvious.
Right.
But all of that would come in, all that chaos, we knew that just couldn't break us.
Right.
And it was going to be difficult, and it was very difficult. But surrounding yourself with a community of people that can come and walk with you through that,
community,
I think is really crucial.
Yeah, you're talking about that taking to the next, because that's what happens, right? Is a lot of people, I think, this is an opinion statement.
Yeah.
They're neither happy nor sad. They get to this place of like, I have no idea what's going on in my marriage, and they don't, maybe there's greener grass on the other side. Sure. It's not even that they're necessarily upset with what they have now. Going to that next level. And you said something, communication.
Yeah.
Something I've realized hiring you, honestly, and then other things, is there's a difference between conversation and communication.
Yeah.
We can talk a lot about things, but if we're not communicating what you think, what I feel, vice versa.
Right.
And then there's a path to doing something about it. Like you said with you and Corey, you finally got on your knees and were like, we're going down this road.
Yeah, we're going to do it.
You're just going to keep toiling, and you're going to get to a point of frustration where you say, let's just throw in the keys and be done. So I love that. That's pretty incredible. So what has it been like 3 years now? You've been out of the church workforce, let's say it that way. I mean, you still work for a church, but you're a bivocational person, pretty much, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But on a day-to-day, now you work for us, and you work for a big dietitian's office of 60 plus people, right?
Yeah.
What's been some of the challenges going from that environment to this environment, specifically, as a woman? I mean, to be in a position you're in where you're making decisions and not just doing things.
Yeah.
Not a lot of women are in positions like that, just being frank, right?
Yep.
So what's that like?
Well, first, I lost my identity. For 12 years, I was in ministry, and I was known as Pastor Gabbee. I was a shepherd. I was leading and training and developing. And then I walked away from FullTime Ministry, and it was like, what is my identity in the spiritual sense? What God has called me to do. So that was really difficult. But it was also difficult to learn how to function in an everyday office with people that are not like-minded like you. And just the moral compasses are different.
Sure.
Your conversations are different. The weight that you carry from other people are different. So it's just realigning yourself to understand this is what we're meant to do. Right. We're meant to walk alongside people that are not like-minded like us.
Right.
The goal is to help them understand what life is like in Christ.
Right.
But it's not easy.
No.
And I also had a difficult time understanding that God gives us seasons in different places just for that to be exposed. We may not be the final result. We may not see someone come to Christ, but every day matters. Our attitudes matter, the way we respond, the way we talk about our marriages, the way we talk about our parenting. Everything is being heard, whether they're responding to it or not. We're planting that seed.
I think that, I want to hit on this with the business owners. You said seasons. Everything's a season.
Yeah.
It's so hard for a lot of business owners, for myself and the ones I talk to included, I think. You guys let us know on Instagram messages about this one, but when you hire someone, you're like, okay, they're going to be here for 20 years, and I can't wait to put down roots, and they're going to be retire with us and go through the glory days of whatever that means. And then someone leaves, It's so hard. I know for me, it was hard. I finally, probably last year, almost a year ago, I finally was like, you know what? If people are here for XYZ time, I'm going to do the best I can with them, for them.
Yep.
What do you say to a business? Like, again, can you kind of reiterate in terms of a business sense? How do business owners invest in people without making it feel like they've got to get some massive return themselves?
Yeah.
Have you thought about that?
So I think,
or how you've done that in your own work experience?
Yeah. So asking yourself, what's the goal with them?
What's the goal?
I think when we understand who they are and where they're going, what they're doing, you know, if you know right away that this is just part of the journey that they're going to get to, what can you do to help them improve and develop as an individual?
Guys, please listen to this. This is something we talk about all the time. This is incredible.
Yeah.
This is great.
So I think just looking at that big picture, because every day matters.
Yeah.
I had a girl that I managed at my last job, incredible individual. And I kept telling her when we had evaluations, I'm not telling you this information to necessarily hit home right now.
Yeah.
But in 5 years from now, from 20 years from now, I want you to look back and use this as an experience where you can grow and become a better employee in wherever you're at.
Right.
So just looking at that big picture, what is your goal? How can you empower them? Because every day matters. And who knows, in 2 years, they may become so sold out for the company that they may stay.
Who knows?
Who knows?
That's a great phrase.
Yeah.
Who knows? And you can't make up scenarios.
Sure.
I can't in my mind of, well, if they do this, then this could happen. And like your business could change business changes so rapidly. I mean, business owners listening know that. You get a call, you get a contract, you get an opportunity that you thought you made a plan for 2 years, and then all of a sudden you get a massive opportunity. Right. So just taking it day by day. I mean, I do like the phrase that says, write your plans in pencil, so that they can be erased and changed, but you at least have a plan, you know?
Yeah.
So that's really great. Well, let's get to, you wrote something down. I wanted to kind of wrap the episode up with. So many people listening, like we said, we're talking about admin or office positions, non-field positions. It's intimidating for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Where do you find a Gabbee? Where do you find a Mary, our other admin assistant? It's very difficult, because it's intimidating for a lot of people who are like, oh, it's a labor intensive job. It's not traditional office job where you're in a cubicle or something like that, or an executive assistant for like a white collar person.
Right.
So it can be a little intimidating. You wrote down 3 things that you say the 3 things, or talk about what you think is like 3 keys to being free in your position, so that when guys are looking to hire this person, how they can set them up for success. Because I do know a lot of people hire that person, and then like 2 months in, it's like a flamed out.
Yeah.
So talk about that.
So one thing that I loved about our interview process is, because I'm a communicator and you communicate as well. Yeah. We talked about all of this up front, in what you would give me permission to, what freedom I had, and what the goal would be.
Sure.
So I think 3 things that I would really look at is, when you're hiring someone to come in and look at the internal operations side, giving them space and time. It takes time to really, especially I wasn't involved in the green industry, so I didn't have the information or experience.
Sure.
So giving them time to really look at the business, looking at the holes that exist.
Functionality.
Exactly. Yeah. What's missing? What's already in place? What do we not need to recreate the wheel with?
Right.
And then just having that time. So it's not a quick fix. We're 4 months in and we've made a lot of progress, but it's been a lot of work too.
A lot of work,
But the first 2 months was really just
slogging through.
It was rough. Just being exposed to a lot of it.
And let me interject here. So in a good way, I think. I created this business. So like my mentor told me, you're trying to fly a plane while you build it.
Yeah.
So when you're doing that, you're trying to just keep the plane afloat.
Yeah.
And as a business owner, you do a lot of things that work for you.
Yeah.
That don't necessarily work for an organization.
Exactly.
And I knew that when I hired you, like that was the conversation we had.
Yeah.
But it's like the iceberg thing where you're at the tip of the iceberg and you think you see it, and then you uncover the first level and you're like, oh my gosh.
Right.
And it's been it was painful in a good way, like almost like a workout pain.
Yeah.
But yes, like having that precedent and like plate, like here's the plate. Gabbee, what foods do you think need to stay go? And like having that opportunity to is so important for people to understand. Like, I think that's the one key I would say as you continue is what works for you doesn't necessarily work for your organization.
Right.
And you have to figure out how people can operate within a system. You know, like for example, I go on vacation every July with our family to the beach. And in my mind, because the business wasn't burned and crashed to the ground, I got back, we had a good system.
Right.
But just because it worked doesn't mean it's what works best. Like just because you survived doesn't mean we had a real system.
Right.
So you can trick yourself as a business owner a lot of times until you have someone like yourself.
I had to remind myself that the business with us, specifically in Trifecta, the business existed for 5 years.
Yeah.
So a lot of things were being done well.
Yeah.
And there was a lot in place that was great.
The bones were good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I had to keep reminding myself of that. But I think with the space and the time, you also gave freedom.
Yeah. Is that the second one?
Yeah. So freedom to make decisions within, a scope with not necessarily needing your approval on everything. But just that freedom to come to you and say, here's what I'm seeing, and start to really press you on the why we do the things that we do. Because we really need to understand what is our goal, what are we trying to communicate, and really how are we going to get there?
Goal, communicate, how we're going to get there.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Those 3 great things.
Yeah. And I just think it's really important to have those conversations. The last thing is the hardest thing, and you're doing it. It's been uncomfortable for both of us, but I think any business owner has to be ready to be uncomfortable. You're going to air out dirty laundry. You're going to see, okay, in our situation, for the last 5 years, this is how I've been operating, and all of the junk is going to come to surface.
Sure.
But it has to come to that surface.
Yeah.
And it's also going to be difficult to take your hands out of the pot.
Yeah.
Some people are micromanagers. Some people are not. And then there's always that fine balance where we can partner together.
Yeah.
Let's walk with each other and let's see what this actually looks like.
I've always said, it's like, Chris can tell you this, I've always said, I think the best thing is the analogy of bowling, where you have bumpers.
Yeah.
I think that's,
right.
You're not like
that's good.
Holding the ball for the kid and rolling it for him and like every time, but hey, let's put bumpers here, and you're like, let's run free, and if we need to take the bumpers off at some point, then great, but I've always said the bumpers analogy was ideal for someone because like for me, I'm still in like a daily role at the company.
Yep.
So if I were ever to step out of the daily role and just be like the owner and come to like meetings and stuff like that, I'd even have to the bumpers now would be off, and now it'd be just free bowling. Yeah. So
those bumpers are systems and processes that are in place. So when you do go on vacation, you don't necessarily have to worry because the system isn't operating out of Alex. It's operating out of who we are and the culture and the organizational processes that we have in place for everyday day-to-day operations.
Right. This is why we suggest to people not to name their company their last name, by the way. You don't know this probably, but we tell people
makes sense
for 2 reasons. 1, if you ever sell it or move on, it's like, oh, it's still your last name. You still this. But 2, it creates a mental block for your employees that, oh, I work for Kirby Landscaping.
Right.
And it's not a company, it's I work for a person. And I just think, I don't know about you, I just always feel like that's a mental block for people when they feel like they work for a person specifically. Does that make sense? Instead of an organization?
This is why the onboarding process is so important, because you have to communicate to your employees, this is who we are. Yeah. These are our core values.
Outside of myself.
Right.
We are this outside of myself.
Regardless if Alex Kirby is still the owner of Trifecta.
Right.
This is the core of who we are, and this is why we exist, and this is what we want to accomplish.
Right.
And through that, we need to build that quality so the employees understand. I actually work for a company that does have these core values in place, and we are, for us, changing one property at a time. And so when they do go to those properties, they are making that difference even in the work that they're doing, because it's just the company that we are.
Right.
So that onboarding process has to exist so we can communicate that to the employees.
That's awesome. Well, we need to do a follow-up episode on, because we just created this onboarding core values, all that stuff. We'll need to do an episode, producer Chris, in a few weeks probably, because we've had a lot of people. We took that picture on Instagram about our new onboarding packet, or what do we call that?
Yeah, you're right.
Onboarding packet.
Yeah.
And people were like, "Whoa, can I get that? What is that?" I had a friend the other day.
For a small flat fee.
For 3 small payments of $29.99.
You can have a copy of it.
I had a friend the other day who I've helped grow his business from, I think he had 1 employee part-time 2 years ago. I think he has 6 full-time today.
Okay.
And he was like, man, I got to get that. Like, I don't know, what am I doing? Employee handbook. And so we need to talk about onboarding and employee handbook and like core values here in a few weeks. But
when the question comes up, when a problem comes up, our first question is always, well, what is the process, or what does the policy say?
Right.
That way we don't have to carry the weight of being reactive in situations, because we can always fall back on an established process or policy that's in place.
I love it, Gabbee.
It's better.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to have you on in a few weeks to talk about that again. Again, guys, this is Gabbee Bagby, business administrator for my main company, Trifecta Landscaping, talking about how do you run a business that's not run on the owner, and people can operate in effectively. And I know a lot of you guys it's April. A lot of home service based people, it's April. They're hiring that first person right now, whether up north, it's like crucial time.
Sure, yeah.
So hopefully this has been helpful for a lot of people. You guys can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Down to Business Podcast. Make sure you leave us a review if you have some time on Apple Podcasts. So again, Gabbee, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks.
All right, bye, guys.
I don't know where you find these guys.
So you're going to want to take your pen like this, and you're going to go, you're watching Disney Channel.
Oh my God. No. Logan's been farting in my office all morning.
What?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's also been following me on the freeways 2 days in a row.
No, I was ahead of her. She followed me.
He's riding my tail. I'm actually feeling bullied.
Does
Stalked.
he have his Trifecta Magna on his car?
Did you this morning? I don't know, but his hair was blowing in the wind in the sunroof the other day.
Ready? Yeah, put your earbuds in, you weirdo.
Yeah. Stay out of my business. Don't get down to business with us.
Don't, especially when Logan's in the room doing fart machines.
No coughing. No breathing. Put your earbuds in. Listen to inappropriate music.
All right, here we go.